I don't know if I'll ever have a shoot like this. I hope I do, but I don't think I ever will. And he looked at me, he goes, I'll tell you what, kid, you got it. You got it. And then the whole way back, we didn't say a word. Everyone's just like, what happened? Like, what? And I looked, and just a tear. One little tear just came down my eye. And that's what I thought. I just shot an A-lister, and it couldn't have gone any better.
I'm Justin J, and this is The Plug. Interacting with a high-profile celebrity can be an awkward experience. For many people, their default reaction is to shower them with praise or launch into a meandering story about a distant connection that they have with each other. Neither approach ever leads to a real conversation, let alone a meaningful connection. There's a distinct skill involved in dealing with people who are always in the spotlight and accustomed to constant admiration. Today's guest is an expert at it. He's one of Hollywood's most sought-after celebrity photographers, and his work can be seen on billboards, books, movie posters, and magazines. He has a keen understanding that shooting pictures of high-profile subjects requires more than just technical proficiency with lighting and composition. There's a psychological skill involved in being able to read the room, navigate egos, and capture a compelling picture despite the sometimes unpredictable emotional state of his subjects. Through years of experience, he's mastered the ability to meet each celebrity where they are and adapt to their energy in order to get the perfect shot. It's a delicate balancing act that involves equal parts artistry, problem-solving, diplomacy, and psychological intelligence. So why was Madonna's offer to have him shoot her album cover rescinded? And how did he get Warren Beatty's cell phone number after shedding a tear? We'll find out as we sit down for a chat with the guy behind the lens who's got no shortage of LA stories. Today, photographer, motorcycle enthusiast, and savvy wrangler of some of Hollywood's biggest personalities, Mr. Brian Bowen Smith. Brian Bowen Smith, man, thank you for sitting down. It's a pleasure to see you. I know we've crossed paths many times over the years, but I'm stoked to get to cut it up with you, man.
Yeah, I know.
So, we've had on a lot of photographers over the years as guests. We've had on Sam Jones and Glennie Friedman, Michael Muller, Danny Clinch, Art Brewer. And, they all seem to have a really unique path to finding the careers that they ended up eventually having. And I'm wondering what your path is to kind of becoming the go-to celebrity guy in LA right now. I mean, did you assist?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you had a little experience in front of the lens. Like, what's your backstory? How did you get here?
I actually was very fortunate enough to assist one of the great icons of the photography generations, Herb Ritts.
Oh, wow.
I worked with him on a commercial as a talent. He did a billboard with me, Tracy, Chapman, and Liv Tyler for the Gap. I fell in love with it, and then I just went on a whim and said, hey, man, whatever it takes, and I know a lot of people say that, but I literally meant whatever it takes to get in and find out if this is possible for me and get a glimpse of what it's like at the high end. And Herb was, they considered him, even though he did some of the best fine art in the world, he was considered a celebrity photographer. And I know he even got a lot of slack for it from the New York guys and the big ones because of that, which is ironic because now that's everyone's world.
Yeah.
So I knew very early on exactly what I wanted to do and what kind of photography I wanted to do. So being with him, who was the best at it, was my path to success.
So in a situation like that, you're the on-screen talent. What made you gravitate towards being the guy behind the lens, taking the photo, instead of trying to go maybe to the next level and be an actor, and especially like in Hollywood?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a bit, and it's just when I was with him and saw it firsthand, it just sparked it. It's like seeing your wife for the first time and how your heart went like this, and how it's so unapproachable and unattainable, but you're going to try. You know what I mean? And I knew that day. And then during lunch, he was editing his Africa book. He's like, you want to see something cool? And then I'm looking at the blueprint of his book, Africa. And I'm just like, wait, what? This is insane. So then I went home and studied him and bought all of his books and just really dug into the photography world. And
did you still have a foot in like the modeling/acting game? Or did you throw that away right away and make a transition?
I never was the funny part is I was never really a model. I was just hot as fuck. So I'm just kidding. I'm like 5'8", 5'9". I never was really a model, but I had some of the best modeling gigs you can get. Like I've only done like 3 big major campaigns. It was The Gap, Abercrombie and Fitch with Bruce Weber, and a couple other, big ones. But that's it. You know what I mean? But they were all like huge campaigns. So I got a lot of notoriety, but I never really modeled. You know what I mean? I did a lot of acting stuff and I did a ton of commercials. That's my bread and butter. And so I've always been in the world of entertainment. Yeah. If you will, you know what I mean? And so,
but what was it about photography that made you wanted to gravitate towards that as opposed to, taking acting to the next level?
Yeah, acting didn't work out for me because I have severe dyslexia. And I just, as you got bigger and bigger and the roles expanded, I couldn't remember my shit and I'd be fucking up other actors because I didn't deliver the line I was supposed to. I'm really good at ad-libbing. Do you know what I mean? But that's not how it works. Directors and other actors rely on you to say your words so they can do their job. And I remember just people being annoyed with me, like, stop ad-libbing and deliver the lines. Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I can't. Well, and it just wasn't in my heart. It wasn't in my blood. I went far enough to where I was like, I did some really cool shit and I was like stoked. I'm fine with that. Retiring after I made out with Jen Aniston. I'm good.
Well, speaking of lines, there's a great scene in the TV show Breaking Bad where Jesse's talking about Saul Goodman and he says to Walter White, like, you don't need a criminal defense attorney. You need a criminal defense attorney.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the semantics of how that sentence played out. And, you and I have crossed paths a couple of times and I've seen you kind of operate on set. And I always get the impression that you kind of present yourself not just as a celebrity photographer, but as a celebrity photographer. Is that a fair characterization? Do you agree with that? Is that a strategy? What are your thoughts on that?
No, not at all. I think it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I think I'm a people person. I enjoy and I get excited. But even a shoot that I did yesterday, I was super nervous. You gotta deliver each time. And what people don't understand is you never get to a level, or you shouldn't get to a level in photography or any other craft in the arts where you're comfortable and you think you've made it, because that's when your creativity stops and I think that's when everything can start either remaining the same or going backwards. So I always treat each shoot like it's my first. And the great thing about photography is it is. Even if it's with the same person, it's a brand new shoot, a brand new set of rules, a brand new set of stipulations, a brand new set of character-driven or not character-driven. It's a whole creative process from start to finish all over again. And I always get nervous that I'm not going to deliver because I want to be the best that I can be. I want this person to walk away and say, that was the best shoot I've ever had.
Well, so one of my favorite comedians is Neil Brennan, and he had a really great take on celebrity. He said once that, being in proximity to somebody extremely famous, it's kind of like driving next to a cop on the freeway. Like, no matter how hard you try, you can't act completely normal. There's something in the atmosphere that's just slightly altered in a way that you can't avoid.
Yeah.
And, I'm curious about the psychology and the mental process of you shooting celebrities, because navigating these big egos, it can be very challenging.
You're not going to ever navigate them. What you are is you're in the room. Prime example, Denzel Washington. The most intimidating man in show business. He's just the real deal, and so to the point where people are like, oh, you're not going to get much out of him or this and that. Like, I knew you're not going to go in there, what's up, Denzel? How you doing, bro? Brian. It wouldn't have went over good.
Yeah.
So, I said, Mr. Washington, how are you? It's nice to meet you. My name is Brian. I'm going to be shooting you today. So anything you don't want to do, obviously you're not going to do. My job is to see what you want to do, and I'm going to make it the best I can make it. You good with that? He's like, I'm real good with that. I go, all right, thank you, sir. And then I went out and then I bring him a coffee. You would you like a coffee? He's like, yeah. And so we sat down. I gave him a coffee, and he said, "So where are you from?" I was Syracuse. Oh, no way. Yo, I mess with Syracuse. And we started talking. And then I started kind of interviewing him, asking all these questions. And so the ice was broken now. Now he's a normal person. Might as well have been you.
Yeah.
And we talked for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then he even said to me, he goes, "You're smart." And I was like, "How so?" He goes, a lot of people don't get to know me before they shoot me. He goes, we just had a half-hour conversation. I feel like you know a lot more now. And I think that that's smart as a photographer to know who they're shooting. Most people just tell me what to do and tell me where to sit.
Yeah.
And then they get that. And I said, well, and so then when we did the shoot, we were supposed to do one setup and it was supposed to last, he said, I'll be there like 10 minutes. We did 6 setups. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where you feel people out. Then Jack Black walks in the room and jumps on my back. And we start dancing in a circle. You got to vibe. It's just like anyone, I guess, you meet, you got to vibe them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You obviously have, a lot of intelligence in that psychology of how to kind of disarm somebody or what approach to take depending on the person.
Yeah.
Was that something that you took a long time to develop, or is that something that came really natural to you?
I think that comes from my jacked up upbringing. You know what I mean? Like I grew up in a really tumultuous, destructive, horrible environment. So I learned at an early age, and when I say early age, I'm talking about 3 and 4, how to survive and how to read people and how to know to stay away from that one. And that one's going to help you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think when you're that young and go through that and you approach life just studying people. Do you know what I mean? I knew when I was about to get jacked on a corner.
Yeah.
Way before it happened. So I would start running. I'm on the safe side, so I'm gone. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to be caught in a situation. I'm very street smart. I'm very aware. And I think that made what I do now my main strength, because I can read someone and know, all right, this guy wants to get in and he wants to get out. This girl wants to play. You know what I mean? I know within 5 seconds. And then I know how to handle each one to get the best out of them I could possibly get. Some like anyone or any situation, it's out of your control. It's not going to go well. But that's got nothing to do with me, or it's this universe and that person just saying, this isn't going to go well.
That speaks to the kind of the psychological intelligence that you have, that you've, cultivated to deal with these people. And it would seem like shooting with celebrities, that's a major skill set to have.
Yeah, it is. And one of the misconceptions about shooting with celebrities is that it's this big entity and it's a big deal. I can say most of the time, it's just like you and I are doing right now. You know what I mean? Because they come in and I'm at a level in my career now where they're like, I've been wanting to work with this guy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what I learned with Herb, is that Herb, everyone that came in was like, I remember Gwen Stefani jumping up and down and going, Herb Ritts, I can't believe it. I can't, she was so excited to work with him. It's like getting to work with a huge director. Do you know what I mean? Like Scorsese, where you're like, man, you're the one that makes people's careers come true. And Herb had that. And I remember watching, and Herb told me, he's like, what you're going to learn is not technical on this thing. He goes, pay attention to every detail of a shoot. And that was the best advice he could ever give me. Because that's what I did, is I watched the way he worked with people. I watched the way people reacted. I watched when it wasn't going well. How did he get out of that situation? You know what I mean? It was like watching a guidance counselor or a therapist, watching them work.
So would you say your approach is very fluid,
yeah,
depending on who the person is? I mean, because I get the sense that you meet people where they are in terms of matching their energy and matching their presence, And I'm wondering, was there ever a shoot where that backfired on you? Like maybe somebody was expecting
once
a little bit more deference and it didn't work in your favor? What was that like?
One time in 30 years, it was the worst. One of the worst days of my life, like as far as the photography world, definitely one of the worst days of my life. And I won't mention names.
Did you get the shoot in the end, or was that why it was so difficult?
I got the shoot in the end. She showed up 3 hours late. I was supposed to it was a reshoot because the last photographer walked off set. So it was a reshoot for a friend of mine who worked in a magazine and said, we just need a cover. in a 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops, one shot. I said, no problem. She showed up 4 hours late. Then I went and was like, what's up? I went to hug her and she looked at me and walked right past me, went into her dressing room with their entourage. Didn't come out for 6 more hours.
What?
Then when she came out, she literally walked up to me and said, you're the worst photographer I've ever worked with in my life. And I'm like, am I getting pumped?
Yeah.
I was like, wait, I've never worked with you. How can you say that?
Yeah.
And I said, what's the problem? And then she just went back into the dressing room. Now, mind you, I got my assistants there. I got, my crew there that was they were doing me a favor, paying them out of my pocket for a shoot that should have been 2 hours max, including setup and takedown. And now it ended up being 14 hours. And I just said to them, I said, you guys can all leave. I'll stay. I'm finishing this. The magazine's like, listen, just leave. I will never hold this against you. This is credit. I go, no. I came here to do a job. I'm not going to be the unprofessional one. So I'm going to wait it out. And my assistants were like, we got your back, homie. Let's just wait.
As a post-mortem, is there something that you felt you could have done differently, or it was just entirely on that?
I didn't do anything, period.
Yeah.
It before I even started, I could see if she didn't like my lighting and then threw a temper tantrum, but she came in hot, I don't know.
I'm curious, so when you set out to shoot an actor, would you prefer to kind of embody them in this kind of larger than life image that the public knows them on the screen? Or do you really prefer, is your goal more to kind of disarm them and capture something intimate and unguarded? Or is it different for each project? Because I would suspect shooting a movie poster is very different than shooting portrait for Variety.
But well, there's a lot of difference. Movie posters are very thought out and in character, and I'm getting told what to do. So I'm basically a DP. Well, you light it this way. We need the actors to do this, and then we're going to make this. When I do a portrait for myself, for like a personal work, it's more about I come up with an idea and I pitch it to someone, and then we go and knock it out of the box. And then you've got editorial, which is based on something that's coming out, but is based on their life and them or a concept that the magazine wants. So then we have more leeway to go, all right, well, we're shooting you at a farm in an old truck with an old motorcycle, and we got these crazy outfits, and I'm thinking, and then I kind of make it up as I go along, but then I'm like, help me figure out what is going to be cheesy to you and what's going to be cool to you. Let's figure it out together. And that way it's our picture. And I know that you're going to love it because you've already pre-approved it. And I let them look at the monitor and I let them see if they like it or not, or how do you like the lighting? And it's a group effort. So it's kind of like 3 different things.
It really just depends. Yeah, because it seems like a lot of celebrity photography, depending on the context, it tends to utilize a lot of high concepts and elaborate set designs. Like, oh, we're going to make this pizza parlor and have the actor throwing dough or whatever.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it really clicks and it makes for a fun, cool shot. But I get the impression that in situations like that, the picture is almost like 75% predetermined before the person even walks on set.
Yeah, that'd be the movie poster part.
And do you prefer the security of having a really fleshed out concept like that ahead of time? Or do you revel in the thrill and the sense of exploration of just having a white psych and a subject?
But I get the best of both worlds, because when I'm doing a movie poster, I want to know exactly what they want and what they're trying to go for so I can do my research. Maybe I'll take a day and I'll go in my garage and I'll practice some lighting scenarios based on, it's going to be 2 car lights behind them, lighting them from behind. Then there's the moon on one side. You know what I mean? And I go and figure out, all right, well, what am I going to use for car lights to make it look realistic? And obviously that's going to be a little bit more of a tungsten light because they'd be yellowish. Then you mix that with the blue light of the moon. Do you know what I mean? Which is actually, everyone thinks this soft, pretty light, because when you look at a landscape in the moonlight, everything looks like just so. But it's actually a hard light that's almost like a stop down. Do you know what I mean? So I love figuring out what that is and how I'm going to achieve these things. But then, you give me an actor, like you said, and give me a white psych, and then I get to create images based on our personalities, or I'll come up with a concept.
Is that intimidating or refreshing? You like to do that?
No, it's refreshing. I love to do both. Like I shot Kevin Bacon yesterday, and I know I know he loves playing his guitar with his family. He sits on his porch, and I'm like, that vibe, that guy, I want that guy. So I said, bring your guitar. And so he did. So we're walking around the property where we shot, and I go, oh, did you ever play a guitar in a tree? And he's like, nope. And I go, oh, that'd be a good day to do that. He goes, yep. And there was this beautiful tree, and it spawned off like 10 foot up, all these different limbs. And so, they got him up, we got a ladder, got him up there. He sat down and he just started playing. It was just so cool, so simple.
And so organic.
So I can find those things in a location, like super easy. Like the whole shoot, we did 7 setups. We were only there for 2 hours. I got there and walked through and said, oh, I'm going to shoot right there. Oh, this is great. That's great. And then I told the stylist, here's what I'm going to do. Match outfits to each one. And each shot was like 5 to 6, 7 minutes. And we did 7 setups and we were out of there.
Do you prefer working in a location environment like that, where you can kind of just like discover a shot and work backwards? Or are you more comfortable creating in a studio?
I'm more comfortable either way. I can do anything anywhere. I've shot in a closet before, like literally in a closet.
Yeah.
And did portraits. It's the challenge of, like I said, it's always new. Nothing's repetitive. Even when I go shoot the same studio and the same portrait, there's something a little different. And my assistant, you've done this a million times, my assistants would tell me. And I'm like, no, it is different. It's completely different.
There's always an element of problem solving, whether that problem is the subject being 6 hours late or technical issues or publicist or whatever, right?
Or just like skin tone. Like I was telling them, like, this is a different skin tone than the same. We did the same exact thing, but it wasn't this skin tone. So we don't know what it's going to look like on his skin compared to his skin. So we loved it last time. We said, always do it this way. But again, and I proved my point, his skin was very porcelain and it blew out and it looked completely different. So I'm like, okay, so we need to use, a softer light in the same position. And then we need to add a bunch of clarity to get the actual texture of the skin to come out. And you have to shoot it a quarter of a stop down. Even though it was the same thing, there was a variant that a lot of people, if you don't know your lighting or you don't know what you're doing, would have been stuck right there and would have said, damn, what am I doing?
Yeah. Well, do you have some strategies that you keep in your back pocket to be able to persuade a publicist or an actor into an idea that they may pass on the first time?
If they pass on it, they passed for a reason. I want to pass, even if it's my idea and my concept.
So if you have 5 concepts, you walk in, they pass on all 5, you move on to 6.
We move on. Yeah. Well, we start again over with 1, and if we only get to 4, then we only get to 4.
Is there anything about other people's photos that you really don't like that you consciously try to avoid? I mean, is there something that's a real pet peeve of yours that other people do?
The only thing that I don't get what any other, I love variety and I love watching people do their thing. I do have a pet peeve. If I see a photographer and he has the lens hood on the camera, but backwards, because that's how you store it. If he's shooting with that or she's shooting with that, I don't know why it drives me nuts.
I hate when people hold the lens from the top too. I
can't see those little things. Yeah.
Or even, but even, I'm talking about more like in terms of content. Like one of the things I can't stand, one of my pet peeves are pictures of people screaming. It just seems so like lazy and contrived. Like, no, scream. Or I feel kind of the same way about cigarettes too. I don't like the politics of it, but it's also seems a little lazy,
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard to find your own style. You do that kind of stuff because you know it works and you're going to be safe. Yeah. You have a more elevated palate, I believe. So like the average person, they're still going to love that cigarette hanging out some cool dude's mouth.
Another thing, you don't see it as much anymore, but like 10 years ago, you'd see a lot of shots of like a location shot with 2 high rollers and a seamless, but the frame is wider than the rollers, so you can see the background.
Peter Lindbergh killed it. Stop doing it.
Yeah, stop doing it. I do not like that.
I'll admit I've done it a couple times.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you work every day, sometimes, not everything's a home run.
Yeah, or sometimes someone's like, that's what I want. Like my pet peeve, here's a pet peeve I have. When an art director says, I want it to look like Peter Lindbergh. I want it to look just like, and I'm like, well, why didn't you hire Peter Lindbergh? You know what I mean? Like, I don't tell me to copy someone else's work. I just don't, it's just not, let's do our version. You know what I mean? Like,
so, I feel like most of us have been on vacation or maybe a work trip at some point, and maybe you had a fling with somebody while you were on that trip, And you realize when you get back home that it's a very context specific relationship, and it doesn't work when you get back home. And, I'm wondering, you have all these really intimate collaborations with celebrities and subjects, but it's in a very particular context. And, I also see you on Instagram, and you have a couple friends that are legitimate movie stars that are legitimate friends of yours, So I'm curious about the transformation from this kind of contrived on-set relationship into a friendship in real life. Like, does that tend to happen a lot for you? I mean, have you ever been rebuked? You felt like you had a connection and they're like, no thanks. I mean, what's the psychology of that?
I think it's more of a respect thing. When you have a work relationship with someone, it's great and you have a great time. It's almost like you ever go out, meet a new guy that's with your friend, and you guys have a blast. And you guys are like, I love you. We're gonna hang every time I come to New York. And you haven't seen the guy now in 5 years. But then you run into him, you're like, oh shit, dude, remember that banger we had that one time? I think it's more like that, where like you gain a mutual respect for people, but I don't expect them to walk up in a restaurant and be like, what's up, Brian? How are you? Certain people you click with and certain people, but it's just like every friendship that everyone else has too. How many friends do you like, I've got about, maybe 4 really good friends, guy friends, but I've got 100 guy friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But 4, like, I'll call when I'm sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or I always felt the sign of a true friend is somebody you call and do nothing together.
No, a sign of a true friend is someone who helps you move furniture when you're leaving your house.
Yeah. I think in many ways, the photography industry has really changed dramatically, kind of for the worst in the last couple of years. It's a real kind of perfect storm of negative factors. Mm-hmm. But I feel like with the work that you do, there seems to be a little bit of a firewall protecting you because of the access needed and the celebrity element of it. And, when you have a space that's so driven by publicists, it seems like, your track record and your personality and your ability to reliably deliver great shots every time, that's really more important to those publicists than finding somebody who will do the job cheaper. Yeah. I suspect you're not losing a lot of jobs to 20-year-olds with iPhones. But, I think that emphasis on experience rather than affordability, it's kind of unique in photography right now, where it's oftentimes a race to the bottom. I mean, do you agree with that?
I do agree. I'm very fortunate. And who knows which way this whole industry is going to go in the next 5 years or so. And with AI and people are able to deliver. I've never felt like in a world of amazing photographers, I've never felt ever where I felt like I'm like not included, or I never got upset when someone else got a job. When it gets slow, I have more time to do my personal work. So I keep myself busy. I don't sit around, oh, why am I not working? This, that. I don't control how I'm going to work or when I'm going to work. I take it when it comes, and that's that. So my mentality from day one till now is to always keep a cool head, never be threatened or worried about anything, deal with problems and deal with situations when they come. Like COVID, we thought, what are we going to do? Everyone was in the same boat. I think in the photography world, we're like that all the time. You don't know when your next job's going to be, and you don't know how big of a rut you could be in. And it's kind of, that's why I tell people that you've got a thick skin in this industry to really, really want to do this.
I guess what I was getting at is there's a distinct barrier of entry to shooting celebrity, as opposed to somebody who shoots, lifestyle or even fashion for that matter, and I think you're in a unique position because of that, which is interesting.
Yeah, there was a guy I was talking to last week, and he's just like frustrated, and he's like, and he literally said, but I'm like, if I'm being honest, I shoot better than you. So I don't understand why I'm not, and I'm like, well, you're not me. You may be better than me, but it's not always about just being talented or, you shoot so good. It's not about that all the time. And what you don't understand is the business of photography is different for me than it is for you. And also everyone forgets I've been doing this for 30 years. Just same exact thing. When they were off shooting models and doing swim campaigns and taking month-long jobs in Hawaii and living it up, I was still doing portraits of celebrities. And I knew what I wanted to do. Fortunate for me, the whole world now only wants to deal with celebrities.
Yeah.
Even those swimsuit catalogs and even those commercials. And it's all A-list actors that are doing all these jobs now. So I have a relationship with them and I have a relationship with publicists. So now they're like, oh, like you said, it's more of a comfort factor now where you go, at least with Brian, we know what we're going to get. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit about the role of the publicist, because it seems like there's such a huge publicity machine behind a lot of celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
And these publicists play such a crucial role in the gatekeeping of celebrity photography. And, even fashion, for instance, like as much as it can be elitist or exclusionary as well, like ultimately, a lot of the decisions in the fashion world are made by really creative people, whether it's the designers themselves or art directors who are really creative. Whereas like, I've met a lot of publicists that are very insecure, can be dismissive, and they're definitely concerned with a lot of factors that are outside of the creative process. And I don't want to put you too much on the spot because I know it's your bread and butter.
No,
but does that serve the picture well? I mean, having the publicist be that involved?
I think the publicist protects their client. So basically, what we don't know, the publicist and their clients know everything. So say I'm so-and-so. I tell my publicist, whatever we do, we're not doing this today. Even if Brian asks, we're not doing it. So you need to talk them out of that. Now, I don't have to look like the bad guy telling my friend Brian, I don't want to do something. I'll just make you do it. But when a publicist says something, I listen. Because she's saying it for a reason. I'm not going to change that reason. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know if it's their reason or if it's the talent's reason. All I know is there's a reason. And I'm going to respect those boundaries. So I'm a good student when it comes to a publicist. I know that also publicists can make your career. I'll tell you a prime example. I was assisting a photographer and he was being a jerk to her. Like you were saying, like, this is my shoot. You don't tell me what to do. Get out of here. Get out of my set. And years and years and years later, she became one of the heads of a huge company. And the story goes, he walked in. He doesn't remember yelling at her this and that. She goes, oh, and he's like, oh, I got my portfolio. She goes, oh, there's no need. There's no need. She goes, I've been waiting to tell you this for a long time. You get the fuck out of my office. You'll never work for this company ever again. And he goes, you won't remember, but one time you kicked me off your set and you were an asshole. I remembered it to this day. And it made me drive harder and harder to get to where I am now. So I'm like, nah.
Wow. Well, in your experience, I mean, obviously the publicists have a large role to play and you have to, be respectful and deferential. Do you find that they're, like you said, usually acting strategically on behalf of an interest or a request of the talent?
I have such a good relationship with all the publicists I work with, and they're brutally honest, and they'll tell me exactly what's up to do to make the shoot go. They want the shoot to go. They're getting hired by Paramount Pictures. They want their client to do what Paramount wants, but they also want their client to be protected and not sell out to a point. To a point, you're like, if they're like, we're going to put you in men's underwear and we're going to, hang you on a tree as a joke.
Yeah.
But that's part of the gag of the movie, and this is why. And explain it. They're like, no, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? The publicist say no. But she'll go to the client and tell them no. You know what I mean? And then remind me, whatever we do, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I respect that. You're paying someone to get your back. You know what I mean? It's literally like I have an agent for the same thing. I can't do every shoot. We get people calling like, oh, well, Brian, come shoot my kid's birthday party. I'm like, I don't know. Here's what it costs.
Yeah. But you don't want to have to say that.
I don't want to say that. You know what I mean? And by the way, if you want to pay my day rate to shoot a kid's birthday party, I will go. You know what I mean? But most people are like, they don't understand. The goal of someone, like, I would never call Herb Ritts and ask him to do my kid's, senior picture. I know the rules. Some people don't have they don't know that that's not, you don't do that. Like, I'm not going to ask Josh Brolin, who's my best friend, to be in a short that I'm, directing. Do you know what I mean? Without showing him any other thing. And it's not, I'm like, I'm going to say Josh Brolin when I'm already a huge director and I need him to play the lead role. Do you know what I mean? But I know that.
Yeah, yeah.
You think Josh will, come and sing happy birthday for my sister? And I'm like, I don't know. Why are you asking me?
Yeah. And I would suspect one of the reasons that you have such a close relationship with Josh because you don't ask him for favors like that unnecessarily.
No, I don't. I mean, him and I are like, we're just meant to be together.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. If he tried to get away from me, it wouldn't even work. Do you know what I mean? Like, and vice versa.
Say, I just can't quit you.
No, he can't. You know what I mean?
You know, you've had magazine covers and billboards and advertisements. Is there one shoot that kind of comes to mind over the course of your career where you were kind of like, oh shit, like I've arrived. Like this is a big deal. I
got a shoot with Warren Beatty. And Warren Beatty's like, he's Mr. Hollywood. It's Warren Beatty. Like, it doesn't get more iconic to me in the film world. Like he's up there with everyone. And he's like, all right, I have this great location. He called me personally. So just to get a phone call from Warren Beatty, my heart was just like, hey, this is the coolest thing ever. Like Warren Beatty just called my cell phone. And now I saved it, and now I have Warren Beatty's phone number. So rad. And he's like, I have this house, this location, and there's one part that's got the most beautiful light. We'll go up there, and I'm like thinking, oh man, Warren Beatty's talking about beautiful light, like this guy that knows movies better than anyone. I'm like, yes. What time? What's the address? Where? So he was like super chill, like no publicist, no nothing, just showed up and he was like ready to go. He answers the door, the gate. He walked down the driveway. There's this big long gate, and I pull up and, just go park up there, and I drive up, and there's this gigantic mansion broken down. It was a glass house that was shattered and piles of rock. It was like a ruins. And I'm like, where are we? And what is going on? And he's like, yeah, this was the house I built out of glass, and the earthquake broke it. I just haven't had time, but how cool is this? And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I going to do here? Well, the genius with the universe putting us together was like, I never would have thought of that. Nobody would have ever thought about shooting him in a pile of rubble of rocks in a suit, sitting down, and he's like, look at how great the sun is. And the sun is just blasting him. And he couldn't even keep his eyes open. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell this guy anything. This is great. And he went like this, and he looked up, and I got one, and his eyes were open. He just looked up at this guy. And I just remember, and this was filmed, so I couldn't see the picture, but I'm like, oh man.
I got it.
This is incredible. And then he goes, there's a place where the hill on the bluff, it overlooks the whole valley. And we got to get up there at 6:15. And the light is immaculate. So he goes, just me and you, let's go. So everyone's just sitting there, and him and I are walking down this path. I got, my arm out, and I'm helping him walk. And then we get this thing, and we're walking up this little thing through these bushes. And I'm like, where are we going? And what is happening right now? Then we get up to this bluff, and you get out of these bushes, and it's just a little patch of grass. And again, the sun's setting now, and you're just like, oh man, this is magical.
Did the picture itself match the experience, or was it more about the idea?
Then we sat there, and he waited, and he goes, all right. And then for 25 minutes, we just talked about Hollywood. We just talked about everything, everything. And, and I'm just asking him questions that no one would ask him. He's giving me answers. I'm just like, this is so fucking cool. And then he's like, all right, it's almost time. And he just stood there, and I shot like one roll of film. And I just said, man, I want to thank you, Mr. Beatty. I don't know if I'll ever have a shoot like this. I hope I do, but I don't think I ever will. And he looked at me, he goes, I'll tell you what, kid, you got it. You got it. And then the whole way back, we didn't say a word. And I get back to the thing, and they're like, everyone's just like, what happened? Like, what? And I look, and just a tear, one little tear just came down my eye. And he thanked everyone, said goodbye. And it was like, I was speechless. We had like 6 great photos of him, and just was iconic. And that's what I thought. I just shot an A-lister, and it couldn't have gone any better.
Wow, that's special. Like, other than another specific personality, what's the holy grail project for somebody that's in your position?
I did a skin cancer project with Marc Jacobs, with my friend Robert Duffy, who was the president of Marc Jacobs, where the logo or the slogan was protect the skin you're in. It was for melanoma cancer. for NYU cancer patients that couldn't afford, treatments. So we raised money. We put the celebrity on the t-shirt naked and obviously covered. And it said, protect the skin you're in. And then Marc Jacobs sold t-shirts out of his stores. And we raised millions of dollars. And I received an award. And to be able to use your craft or your skills to help other people is the most rewarding thing you could ever do. And I remember just, I was in New York City. I could see there were tons of people walking around. And they all had the t-shirts on. I'm like, I did that. I'm like, I'm so excited. And they're like, what? That's crazy.
That's cool.
So I think that'd be my biggest, it's important. Sandy Gallin, who was my manager when I was in acting, who was a big deal. He managed Michael Jackson, Dolly Parton, I think he booked the Beatles on the television show when he was like 17. Like, he's the real deal. And he was Mr. Hollywood. Like, he was the biggest manager there is. And he was working with me. And then he was also friends with Herb Ritts. So that didn't help when I wanted to go. But he was really upset when I quit acting because he's like, I saw so much potential in you and I can't believe you're giving up. And I'm like, I explained to him, I'm not giving up. I just don't love it. And if I don't love it, I'm not going to be good at it. I can get by and I can do cool stuff, but I'm not going to make a living off of this or a career. You know what I mean? And when I did photography, one thing that he said to me was super important because I started shooting and I always go to him for advice. And look what I did. What do you think? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And he's like, wow. And he believed in me. He goes, I believe you're going to do great. And I'm like, I want to be the biggest photographer ever. And then he goes, no, you don't. He goes, listen to me. You want to be important. And you want to be remembered for being important. You want to do things that change people's lives. And you want to do things that people will remember because of that. Because they don't remember the ones that were the best. They remember the ones who did things that impacted things.
Wow. Is he still with us? He's still a mentor of yours?
He died of cancer, years ago. Bone cancer out of nowhere. He'd be so proud. It's one of the biggest regrets I have is that I wish he could see. I know he's looking down, but to actually see what I've become, he'd be the most proud parent ever.
That's really cool. Well, we always like to end the podcast by asking our guests to plug something that they're not directly involved in, that they feel isn't really getting enough attention. It could be a movie, a TV show, a book, an artist, a social cause. Is there something you want to shout out and just give a little shine to?
Maybe just all the young artists of the world, painters, people that draw, people that take photography, people that are making, I see so many people now doing independent films and messing around now that it's so much easier to work a camera and you're not doing film and you can see your mistakes right away. To give it time. Don't rush the process. Part of the problem with young people or old, but people that are starting out are going too fast. They're getting results too fast, whether they're good or bad. They're getting praise too fast. It takes time, like a relationship. You think you know your lover. You don't really know your lover. You may never.
It's hard to develop a craft and make mistakes in private these days.
Yeah, and then it's also hard that, you're putting it on Instagram and millions of people are seeing it right away. Now you're getting millions of reviews right away.
Yeah.
And some of them aren't good. Most of them aren't. And I think that that's hard to swallow. So I think that, people's self-esteem isn't as strong or as powerful as it could be. And then it boosts people up where you're like, you're not as good as you think you are. So you just calm down. I'm trying to be honest with you. Yeah. I've tried to be honest. I've stopped giving really honest advice to people because I've lost friends. People don't want to hear it. Whether they think they do or they don't want to hear the hard truth.
They want praise. They don't want honest advice.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's sometimes the hard truth is so you can learn. I've had it.
What's some of the hardest advice you got from somebody?
Well, a guy, Oseary, who ran Maverick Records, who was Madonna's guy, I just directed the stage performance with Lenny Kravitz and Madonna for the MTV Music Awards. Huge opportunity for me. I killed it. People were like, that was sick. That was great. And Madonna's like, I want you to shoot my album cover and da-da-da. So I was like, awesome. And I went into Maverick Records to have the meeting with Guy, I thought, to figure out what we're going to do. So he sat me down. He goes, well, first off, I'll be dead honest with you. You're not shooting Madonna's album. I was like, huh? You're not ready. And he goes, I don't even know what you do. You're a director, you're an actor, you're a skater, you're a photographer. He goes, you do 8 million things. I don't know which one of them you're good at, but you're definitely not great at photography. I haven't seen enough. Madonna uses the best photographers in the planet. You're far away from that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, and I'm like, thinking to myself, this dick, Madonna asked me to come in and talk to you to shoot it. He goes, I know exactly what she said. She told me. And I told her no. And I'm telling you no. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, look, I like you. And I think that you're going to be good at something, but pick one and stick with it.
And how long ago was this?
That was 30 years ago. Then 25, 30 years ago. And I left and I was so mad that came to my wife and like, I can't believe, and she said, well, maybe he's right. Did you ever think about that? Yeah. He's right. And she goes, I'm just saying, he's running Maverick Records. He started, when he was young and worked his way up. And maybe that's how he did it. And maybe he went through something similar and maybe he's giving you advice because he cares. And I thought, okay.
That's hard to hear though.
It was hard to swallow, but then the next day I woke up and I started day one and I said, I'm quitting everything except photography. And that day, everything was photography, period. I turned down a $45,000 commercial because Herb had a shoot. And my deal was I never missed a shoot. If I got called into Herb's work, he was doing the thing and I was on, there's no backing out or I was done. His assistant made it completely clear. If you're going to commit, you're committing. That means you always show up. You get one chance. Unless you die in a car accident. It's the only excuse. But you're here. And I had a commercial and I almost dialed up. And I thought, if I make this call, I'm done with Herb.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? And that was a lot of money. And I turned it down. And I said, now I knew I was committed. But that advice, you know what I mean? I give advice like that now. I give advice to people that I'm like, I want to be dead honest with you because otherwise I'm blowing smoke up your ass and you're not going to learn anything. And I'm responsible for your failures. I want to be responsible for your success.
It seems like LA is a place where there's an abundance of smoke up the ass being blown and you don't want to contribute to that.
No, their asses are vaping. Like
well, Brian, dude, it's been a pleasure. I always love crossing paths with you. I think I'm
glad we saw you on Saturdays. It reminded me, and I'm like, oh yeah.
I think we did a couple of projects together for Fox. Big shout out to Diane Cooper.
Yeah, we did.
Say what's up.
Yep.
I dig what you do, man. I think it's impressive, and I've been kind of following your career for a couple of years since we finally crossed paths, and I appreciate you taking the time out, man. Hopefully, I'll see you soon.
No, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it and was like in right away is that, you actually know who I am and have been on jobs with me. So there's a little bit of an interesting take because you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing. So this was really fun. And it was different than a lot of podcasts I do. So I really enjoyed it. And,
well, I appreciate it, man. And we'll maybe hoist a cup of coffee or beer next time we cross paths.
Let's go.
All right, man.
Thank you very much.
I'll talk to you soon, man.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening, and a huge thanks to today's guest for dropping in. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor and take a minute to rate, review, follow, or subscribe. This episode of The Plug contains original theme music by Andrew Van Weingarten and Dan Drohan. Mixing and sound design by Matt Boynton at Ultraviolet Audio, logo and branding by Italic at italic-studio.com, and you can check out my photography at justinj.com. Thanks again, and be sure to check out the archive and tune in for future conversations.